Well, you see, I made a video talking about why Hillary might actually run, how she's not ruling it out, how she wants to wait for the Mueller report before making an official decision. And I've also made a video talking about how left-wing identitarianism has become so prevalent that Bernie Sanders will not win. And this is partly Bernie's fault. See, in the 2016 election, Bernie said on the debate stage something to the effect of, white people don't know what it's like to be poor, and he started playing into identity politics. And he did, unfortunately, contribute to propping up this identitarianism on the left, which will now lead to his downfall, exemplified by the story I've pulled up for you right now. Amber Tamblyn isn't voting for Bernie Sanders in the primary because she's excited about the women candidates, saying, "Now I feel like we can have a real debate about policies. We can have a real debate about substance because there's actually a choice." This is what freaks me out. I would love it to have our first female president. Absolutely. There's got to be a good female president. I'm actually partial to voting for Tulsi Gabbard right now because I've heard a lot of good things. Admittedly, I don't know too much about her platform. I know that she's anti-intervention on the left, and this I think is a good thing. But I'm concerned about some of her other stances, and I don't know enough. I know she got a lot of criticism, but I've heard a lot of people I trust have said look into Tulsi. So I'm leaning in that direction. I have not made any decisions. So I would love a woman of color, LGBTQ, whatever. I just want someone to be qualified for the job. This is where it gets sad. For people like Bernie. She said, now there's actually a choice? Whoa, what does that mean? A choice between the merit and the ideas and the ideology driving your candidate? Or are you talking about an actual choice between what's between someone's legs? This is what freaks me out about these people because they don't seem to understand. I don't care what's between your legs if you put something that shouldn't be there. I don't care what your skin color is. I care that your ideas make sense and you will make life better. Apparently, Amber Tamblyn just cares that it's a woman. And she's not going to vote for Bernie simply because he's a man. That makes literally no sense. Bernie is very, very qualified for this position. Now, you may think that Bernie's ideas are bad, and you're entitled to. I certainly don't agree with everything he's pushing. There's a lot of things he's pushing I do agree with. I think he's a little too far left for me, but I do think he's a relatively trustworthy person. But he pushed identitarianism stuff, and so he lost me. People have pointed out I was like a Bernie bro, and I would say it's kind of fair to say that. I was frothing at the mouth for Bernie in 2015 and 16. Ask the people I worked with at Fusion. That's a fact. But when he started pushing the identitarianism stuff, he really started to lose me because that stuff freaks me out. Well, now he's going to reap the benefits. Amber Tamblyn said, "It's monumental that multiple women have already announced their candidacies in the 2020 elections, and she's excited to support them." Tamblyn, famous for her role in the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants franchise and for being a co-founder of the Time's Up movement, has long been politically active and campaigned for Hillary Clinton in 2016. But for 2020, women's candidates already include Elizabeth Warren, who was the first Democrat to announce candidacy in December, and Senator Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand. When we talk about, are things really changing? Are things getting better? It doesn't feel that way. I think when you look at something like that, this is a huge deal. Tamblyn said on the most recent episode of BuzzFeed News' Profile, that is a monumental deal. So let's break this down again. What is she saying? Are things changing? Absolutely. We've over the past several hundred years, civil rights law, gender pay equity laws, whether you like them or not, minimum wages, many of these things the left supports have come into play. We've had, in the late 60s, the end of anti-miscegenation laws, meaning interracial marriage and coupling and cohabitation was now legal, which led to my family no longer being persecuted and concerned about whether or not they were in violation of the law. People don't seem to realize how that wasn't that long ago. My mom lived through an era of when it was illegal, as she was very young. But my grandparents lived this. This is recent history, and things have changed for the better. I absolutely recognize that. They're getting better. But I want to point out, when she says it doesn't feel like things are changing, maybe it's because you're a wealthy white woman, and you should follow your own narrative. These are people who believe that, white people, white privilege, and all that stuff. But what always blows my mind is the separation from the poor working class and the uber elites. And they attribute their worldview, their wealth, their perspective onto the poor people as if they all share that experience. They don't. So let me tell you about things getting better. Yes, the standard of living has skyrocketed. Education has skyrocketed. And it's not because a politician happens to be a female. while I do think there are great things to be achieved when we get more representation, when young people of color, when young women can look up to high-profile individuals and say, wow, anyone can do it. These are all really good things. And guess what? These changes are coming, and they're here. I certainly think it's great to see many more women are entering the race, and some of them have good ideas. Tulsi Gabbard, for instance, again, I got to do a lot of research on Tulsi and her backstory, but from what my friends are saying, they're praising her, and admittedly, I am not fully informed on most of these politicians. So ultimately, yes, it's great to see representation because this can inspire people to be involved. I respect that. But to act like this is the monumental deal. Oh, it's women are running, therefore now you have a choice. I find that particularly offensive and short-sighted and sexist and bigoted. In her new book, a feminist manifesto titled Era of Ignition, Coming of Age in a Time of Rage and Revolution, Tamblyn delves into her own political awakening, becoming woke, right? Isn't it funny how woke and red pill mean literally the same thing? The actor and writer told BuzzFeed News she's grateful to the women that stuck their necks out on the line by running in the 2018 election. She also said she hopes that momentum carries through the presidential election in 2020 with women who are not necessarily likable by patriarchal standards. What does that mean? And here we go. Listen, there is a general understanding of what is and isn't likable, and general characteristics featured among men and women. I think there's a victimhood mentality that gets ingrained in people when you repeatedly tell them. It's always been crazy to me when I hear this. They say, if a woman is acting managerial and she's telling someone what they need to do, they say she's a bitch. But if a man does it, then he's a boss, then he's in charge. And I'm like, okay, I hear you say that. I believe your experience, but I've never experienced that. I've had female bosses. I didn't think any of their attitude had anything inherently to do with them being women. I felt like if they were nice, it's because they were nice people. If they were mean, it's because they were mean people. And my male boss is the exact same thing. I have never looked to a female boss and thought anything about her behavior was rooted in the fact that she was a woman. And I think it's fair to point out probably some of it is. There are different perspectives. Amber Tamblyn, for instance, has a different perspective. And I'd have to imagine her as a boss, she's going to be this overwhelmingly, I imagine she's the type of person who's like, I have to hire women. Right? So then you're going to end up with a certain perspective and personality, and she's going to act towards people based on certain, characteristics from her perspective. I recognize that. I also recognize that some people are nice and some people are mean, and I don't think it's inherent to men or women, because I can't quantify how many men were mean in my life and how many women were mean. For the most part, there's been bad people and good people in kind of equal numbers. But I guess for her, likability is patriarchal standards. Okay, sure, I don't see it that way. If you're mean, you're mean. I don't care whose standards you're mean by. These are women who do not exactly define sexuality by patriarchal standards, she said. These are women who represent intelligence, power, grit, all the things that we have come to love about what creates change and opportunity in the world. And they not only ran, they won. And that to me is so important. Senator Bernie Sanders, who ran against Clinton for the Democratic 2016 ticket, also recently announced his candidacy, but Tamblyn said that while she would vote for him in a heartbeat if he wins the Democratic nomination, she's not supporting him in the primaries. I think he's a wonderful candidate. He's not maybe my candidate, he hasn't been. Instead of giving Sanders her energy, Tamblyn said she's excited to focus on the women candidates. I think that they represent all different types of experiences and truths and policies, and nothing makes me more excited than that, she said. Now I feel like we can have a real debate about policies. We can have a real debate about substance because there's actually a choice. We have a choice now. That's what matters. We've always had a choice. We did. We had a massive field of Republicans, for instance. I get it. You're not a Republican, so you don't view this as a choice. And in 2016, there were like 4 people. So there wasn't really a choice. No real contenders. But we have had many different Democrats of varying positions. And just because we have women now doesn't mean that their positions vary to any greater degree than they have in the past. I will say, though, I will be fair. I want to be fair. And if Bernie isn't your candidate, that is absolutely fair. There is no obligation for Amber to support Bernie based on who he is and what he represents. And I want to make clear that if BuzzFeed is kind of making it seem that this is more about a woman issue, then that wouldn't be fair. But I think she's pointing out it's about, she's focusing on the women candidates. If she doesn't like Bernie because of his policies, I respect that. If she believes we have a choice now because we've got something like 30+ contenders from the primary, she would be right about that too. And I think we can have a real debate. So look, while I'm absolutely always going to be critical of people who think merit comes from, race, identity, gender, whatever, I do think it's fair to point out that perspectives do vary based on people, based on their identity. So I guess I'll put it this way. There is a different perspective you will get from somebody who's running, and they might be female or Muslim or whatever. I don't think that is a good enough reason for me to vote for them. If someone ran, like Hillary Clinton mentioned something, like I could be wrong about this, but I vaguely remember someone saying like, what is different about you? And she said, I'm a woman. And so it's like, that's not an answer. I know it might speak to Amber Tamblyn, who's going to go, yes, you go, girl. It doesn't speak to everybody. If she said something like, I believe in supporting the working class, factories, bring back manufacturing, that's going to speak to more people who are like, okay, the economy is good. So this is why I think identitarianism is ultimately bad. It's bad in a lot of ways, but one way it's really bad is that it is divisive. And the perspective that she has, while I agree that Amber Tamblyn probably recognizes things in Hillary or other female candidates she doesn't recognize in men, it's important to point out campaigning on that alone, or at least exemplifying that, will put a divide between you and other identity groups. I don't like that. I like the fact that we're Americans and we share a community and a common goal to a certain extent. And there you go. So anyway, ultimately the point is Bernie will be hurt by identitarianism, hands down. And with a big field of Democrats, we'll see who wins. I think Bernie may still get, Hillary Clinton might run. We'll see what happens. But anyway, thanks for hanging out. I'll have more videos tomorrow starting at 10 a.m., and I will see you all then.